Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This will be the regular meeting of the West Orange Zoning Board of Adjustment. It is now 8 p.m. on April 28, 2022. And with the power vested in me as chairperson, I hereby call this regular meeting of the West Orange Zoning Board of Adjustment to order. Notice of this meeting was given to the Township Clerk, the West Orange Chronicle, and the Star Ledger, posted on the Township Bulletin Board, all in accordance with the Senator Byron M. Baer Open Public Meetings Act. I will ask you all to pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. We can take the flag down, please, and I will ask Ms. Byrne to read our opening statement.
Certainly. Good evening. The Zoning Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body. It hears evidence from sworn witnesses and makes decisions as with a court of law. The applicants are here because the projects they propose do not meet the requirements of the West Orange Zoning Code, or they've been denied permits by the building inspector. We are their first avenue of appeal. Board members have a twofold responsibility. First, to see the applicant is treated as fairly as possible, since no zoning code could foresee all possible inequities. And second, to protect the welfare of the community as a whole, which is the basic purpose of municipal zoning. Our procedures are simple. The applicant presents his case, objectors then present their case, and in appropriate circumstances, an applicant can present a rebuttal case. Citizens in the audience are then given an opportunity to speak both for or against the application. We expect the conduct of these proceedings to be dignified and orderly, so all persons may obtain a fair and impartial hearing. As our proceedings are public, so is our decision-making, which usually takes place the same evening. Because appeals from the decision of this board can be made to the courts solely on the basis of the record before this body, and since the rules of evidence and case law are technical, we'd like to advise all persons of their right to legal counsel in these proceedings. And we, the board, would consider adjournment to anyone who wishes additional time to obtain counsel.
Thank you, Ms. Byrne. Ms. Chandler, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Mr. Eben,
I'm present.
Mr. Quinzel,
I'm here.
Mr. Redwine,
I'm here.
Mr. Ricci, Mr. Ricci,
Peter, you have to turn on your microphone. He's waving. I see. Please turn on your, there it is.
Here.
Mr. Schwarzbaum,
Here.
Dr. Straker,
Here.
Mr. Sussman,
Here.
Mrs. Weiss. Here. Chairman Neuer.
I am here as well. Announcements. Future meetings of our board. We've scheduled regular meetings to take place on May 19, 2022, June 16, 2022, and July 21, 2022. Questions have been asked about whether these meetings will continue to be Zoom, virtual meetings, or live and in person. Not wanting to make a unilateral decision, I took a poll of the board and our professionals. The overwhelming responses are that the board and our professionals prefer to continue utilizing the Zoom format. There are some very good reasons for that to continue along those lines. The administration may be resuming meetings of the Township Council, but they have left it to each board, planning board, zoning board, etc., to make their own determinations. So having taken a straw poll of our members, the meetings I just announced, May, June, and July, will all be virtual meetings using the Zoom platform. Application ZB 21-01 M Vega Investments is carried to the June 16, 2022 regular meeting. No further notice is required. Application ZB 21-22 for 19 Wheatland LLC is carried to the May 19th, 2022 regular meeting. No further notice is required. So for anyone, any members of the public here now who are interested in those two applications. And while I invite you to stay to listen to the rest of our meeting, those two applications will not be heard. Before we move any further, it is with a tinge of regret that I announce that Mr. Quincell has tendered his resignation as a member of the board. Bart has indicated that his personal business and personal schedules are such that he can no longer in good conscience devote all of the time that he has devoted over the past more than a decade to serving the community by remaining on the board. So while Bart's participation and personality will be missed, Bart, on behalf of all of your fellow board members, I wish you well. The certificate that has been executed by the mayor is up on the screen, and you will be receiving the original. I invite you to give us a few words before you go off. And by the way, you're still on the board if you want to stay for tonight's meeting. That's up to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope everything is well, but I have enjoyed my tenure on the West Orange Zoning Board of Adjustment for over 10 years, close to a dozen. And I've enjoyed my time going through some heavy duty applications like Seton Hall and several others that took over 3 years to complete. I've enjoyed the camaraderie with every person that I've been with regarding the Zoning Board of Adjustment and with the town. But it was my decision at this time to move on and spend some time with other matters that need my attention. And I'm going to miss everyone on the board. And I look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you so much for all the time we've spent together.
We'll
Take care.
miss you, Bart. We'll miss you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Bart. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Will do.
How you doing?
I will do that. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Bart. Good.
Bye-bye.
Back to our agenda. You've all received the draft minutes of March 24, 2022. Does anybody have any comments, suggestions for revisions? And if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Redwine, second.
Second.
Mr. Sussman. Let's do a voice vote. All in favor of adopting the minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The minutes are adopted by a vote of all to none.
I have to abstain. I wasn't there.
I'm sorry, all to none with Mr. Schwarzbaum abstaining. Ms. Byrne, would you be kind enough to swear in our professionals for tonight's proceeding?
Certainly, Jeff, please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your names and professional addresses.
Paul Greigel, business address is 70 Hudson Street, Hoboken, New Jersey.
John Hess, 849 West Bay Avenue, Barnegat, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you all so much. The next on our agenda is our resolution for application ZB 21-08 Maine West Orange LLC. Ms. Byrne worked diligently to complete that resolution in time for tonight's meeting. I believe that there's one adjustment to the resolution that Ms. Byrne has suggested. Alice?
On page 4, when there's discussion about the parking spaces for the electrical vehicles, the language will be altered. And this was at the request of the applicant who had the new applicant attorney who actually read who had listened to the transcript and got the direct quote from the expert who testified. So the parking spaces will be designated as made ready for electrical vehicle charging stations. And I understand that's actually the language that mimics both the statute and the ordinance. So that's one change on the middle of page 4. That change will also be made in the conclusion paragraph on page 13, the condition paragraph 3 will be read to read, the final plan shall show the location of the 5 spaces which shall be designated as make ready for electric vehicle charging stations. And then lastly, the attorney was kind enough to correct the information on page 7 about the designation of the portion of Main Street from Babbitt to Washington Street. The correct language should say it was previously authorized for investigation as in need of redevelopment. And that is the correct way to reference that issue. So I'd like to make that adjustment as well.
I'm happy to confirm that under both the state statute and our local ordinance, the make ready language appears. And so that the change that was requested by the applicant is consistent with the applicable legislation. Does any member of the board have any other questions, suggested revisions regarding the resolution as amended on the record prepared by Ms. Byrne? Mr. Ritchie.
I apologize that I didn't read it thoroughly, but was any wordage put in there in reference to the front facades for the adjacent retail stores?
There is not. Correct me if I'm wrong. I wasn't sure that there was actually a firm decision made on that. So there is no reference to the front facade of the other stores. So I welcome input on that.
To the best of my knowledge, the applicant agreed to do something. Unfortunately, we didn't get to review something, and I don't really want to hold him up. But I think there should be something added in there that the applicant will make at the very least, the best effort to upgrade the existing facades for the vacant retail spaces in character with the bakery that's already updated their facade. Is that sound reasonable?
Then I would suggest an amendment to the resolution of an additional condition that the applicant will utilize good faith efforts to upgrade the facade of the adjacent retail consistent with, what was that, the bakery you said, Mr. Ritchie?
It's a small boutique bakery there. I forgot the name of it.
And submit those to the township planning director for his approval. Is that satisfactory, Mr. Ritchie?
I think that sounds great, Chairman.
Okay, Ms. Byrne, can you add that?
Certainly.
Okay, any other further questions or suggestions from members of the board? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended. I will move the resolution then. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sussman. Ms. Chandler, please call the roll.
Mr. Even,
Mr. Even, your microphone is not on.
I wasn't sure that I could vote on this.
you gave me affidavits for this, sir.
Sorry, Diane, I didn't hear you.
You gave me a signed affidavit saying that you listened to each meeting.
You have to
Yes.
turn your. I'm sorry, Mr. Even, I didn't hear your vote.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mr. Ricci,
Peter? Peter, you're frozen.
Mr. Ricci,
He appears to be frozen.
okay. Mr. Sussman,
Yes.
Mrs. Weiss,
Yes.
let's try Mr. Ricci again.
Now he's gone.
He'll come back. When he comes back, he'll be unfrozen, I'm sure.
Okay, and Chairman Neuer.
I vote yes. Here's Mr. Ricci back. Let's see. Are you unfrozen, Peter? There you go. No, you have to turn your microphone on, please. Microphone. Still microphone. That, he held his hand up and voted yes. The record will reflect that Mr. Ricci votes yes on the resolution.
I do, yes.
Oh, and it's so nice to see that you're not part of that Disney film Frozen. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the part of our agenda where we're going to consider applications for development. The first item on our agenda, ZB 20-16, PS Atlantic Coast LLC for property at 424 Eagle Rock Avenue. Counsel, your appearance for the record, please.
Good evening, Lisa John Basta with the law firm Chiesa, Shahinian, and Jan Tomasi.
Thank you. Welcome back, Ms. John Basta.
Thank you. Hope you feel better soon, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen of the public, as well as members of the board, this is an application which has been before us 5 prior hearings. Am I right, Ms. John Basta?
6. This is our 6th. Yes,
This is
you were
the-
correct. This is our 6th.
I am showing that we heard this matter on September 9th, 2021, October 28th, 2021, December 16, 2021, January 20, 2022, and finally on March 24, 2022. At the conclusion of our last meeting in March, it was left that all testimony from the applicant has been completed. And that what we will be doing tonight is opening the floor to public comment. And as a result of its being such a lengthy application with 5 hearings, I've instructed that the time limitation for members of the public to speak be increased to 5 minutes. We want to give everybody the opportunity to be heard and to make a full record. When the members of the public have completed their presentations, and that's in the form of sworn testimony, including the presentation of any evidence that any member of the public may have, then Ms. John Basta will have an opportunity, and she's not subject to the 5-minute limitation. I anticipate it'll go a tad bit longer than that, but Ms. John Basta will have the opportunity to sum up. I will then open the floor I will close the record and open the floor to discussion amongst the board members and eventually a vote on the application so that we can complete it this evening. Does anybody have any questions before we proceed? Okay, members of the public, this is your opportunity to offer whatever testimony, statements, evidence you may have, either in favor of or in opposition to this application. As I just stated, I've increased the time limit to 5 minutes to give you more time to make your statements. I will now ask Ms. Brill to recognize members of the public who raise their hands.
Any members of the public, please raise your hands. We have Sally Malanga. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Sally Malanga, 57 Ridge Road.
Good evening, Ms. Malanga, you have to be sworn.
Ms. Malanga, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Proceed.
I know that there's already a building on this site. Nevertheless, I'm here this evening to object to this public storage building being placed next to an historic lake. I'd like to compare this to the planning board voting to approve a garish auto zone building next to the historic St. Mark's Church on Main Street. I feel that you are, as a group, the protectors of the way our community experiences our town as a place where appropriate buildings are placed in appropriate places. And allowing a big storage building next to an historic lake that will be there in perpetuity seems like a decision being made for the future that should not be made. I urge you to seek a more appealing solution to the use of the lake and that particular building site, and that it not be granted to yet another storage building, of which we seem to have many. That concludes my comments. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Malanga. Ms. Brill, next member of the public.
Any other members of the public wish to speak? Yes, we have Kevin Malanga. Kevin, go ahead.
Mr. Malanga, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give you this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do so swear.
Thank you, and please state your name and address.
Thank you. Kevin Malanga, 57 Ridge Road.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I've been especially dismayed by the approach of this applicant with respect to many aspects of this project. I've been dismayed by how parking has been handled and the disingenuous idea that there would be no parking on the massed section of the lot until members of the board called attention to the fact that parking would not be permissible there and do something about that. So then striping was offered. Members of the board objected to that. They said, well, that's not going to be appropriate. That won't stop anyone from parking there. And then it was concluded, yes, let's put some landscaping there to keep cars from parking there. So the applicant has, on other occasions, tried to pull the wool over the eyes of the board, such as for the parking for access to the lake. And in fact, no additional parking has been offered. There's going to be only 2 spots offered for people who go to the lake from that parking lot. So there's no community benefit. Then on numerous occasions, there has been public opposition to the cutting of trees at the top of the slope that is to the east of the building. And at one of the hearings, Chairman Neuer said to the applicant's engineer, provide Mr. Malanga, provide me with a calculation of how many square feet would have to be removed from the building in order to protect the trees. A calculation was made. And then when the plans were revised, in fact, there's been no protection for those trees at the top of the slope. At the last hearing, Chairman Neuer gave a little hint, said, how about taking out that notch section of the building? Obviously to protect the trees. Nothing of that was done. Somehow the applicant is just not hearing the board, it's not hearing the public. It's dismaying that we're going to have to potentially have yet another storage facility. There's been no testimony as to why a storage facility is necessary. There's been no demonstrated need within the township. In fact, there's already been a storage facility approved on Pleasant Valley Way. So it can't be said that these variances are required in order to meet some pressing public need for self-storage. So until all these concerns are met, but especially the trees at the top of the slope and that part of the building that we'll call the notch of the building that seems to be very easily removed, yet the applicant is not willing to do so, I respectfully urge the zoning board to not approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malanga. Ms. Brill, do we have any other members of the public who wish to present this evening?
I'm not seeing any hands yet. Any other members of the public? Oh, okay, we have Darren Tobia.
I'm sorry, can you spell? May I have the person's name again, please?
Darren Tobia.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Darren Tobia. That's Darren. Last name Tobia.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tobia. Would you please raise your right hand? And do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give you this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Proceed, please.
I just wanted to know if I had the permission to read a letter that someone else wanted me to read because you couldn't attend the meeting. Is that permitted?
Well, you can read it as your own testimony. If you approve everything that's in the letter, then
I do.
You don't have to tell me who wrote it. You just have to read it as your testimony if this is something that you wish the board to consider.
Sure. Part of this letter is a memory of the former planning director of West Orange about Susan Borg. Susan Borg had a real vision of natural and architectural preservation and the arts, enhancing this township, enhancing quality of life, and enhancing the value of West Orange as a desirable place to live. She instituted the Gooder Survey, she promoted the founding of the Arts Council, and she established the Historic Preservation Commission, as well as working to further the park system. She understood business and how the best business looks, not to the expediency of now and the specific, but to the value of the future and an overall plan. I write to honor her memory and say approving this park is tragic for now and forever after. Please, I urge you to prohibit this construction. That's all. Thank you.
Can we have Mr. Tobia's address, please?
That's 24 Columbia Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brill, any other members of the public wishing to present this evening?
Yes, we have Stephen Dwyer. Please state your name.
Stephen Dwyer, 71 Fairview Ave.
Good evening, Mr. Dwyer. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
I just wanted to, voice my opinion as a West Orange resident. We moved here approximately 7 years ago, and we made a significant investment in totally renovating our home in St. Cloud neighborhood. And, I was disturbed to find out that there was going to be a storage facility built on, the intersection of Route 10. That's already been approved. And, now hearing that there's potentially a second storage facility being proposed for, what's essentially a major intersection in West Orange, just as a visual person driving through the town, let's say a non-resident, I just find it a little bit alarming that, we're going to be basically, known as the town of storage facilities as people drive through these major intersections in our wonderful town, and, taking advantage of the beautiful lake and the Performing Arts Center, which is next to the lake, and, the significant, investment that Chit Chat Diner made, which is very close by. I just, an Eagle Rock being across the street, I just feel this doesn't really fit the area, and I don't think it would really do anything to, enhance the West Orange experience. I think, I understand there is, of course, a need for storage facilities, and I guess there is sort of no perfect place for them, but I just see that intersection as being, especially with Eagle Rock across the street, something a little bit more special. And I really feel that, that should be preserved in any way possible. And that's really all I had to say this evening.
Mr. Dwyer, would you give your address again, please? I didn't get it.
Yeah, it's 71 Fairview Ave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dwyer. Ms. Brill, do we have anyone else, please?
Any other members of the public wish to speak? I'm not seeing any hands.
Going once? Going twice? I now declare the public hearing closed. Ms. John Basta, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Do you need a couple of minutes before you start?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
I figured you would be, but I did want to give you that opportunity. Please.
Thank you. Okay, so this has been a lengthy proceeding, so apologize if the closing is lengthier than normal, but as the board is well aware, the applicant has applied to the zoning board for site plan and variance approval to construct a self-storage use on the property located at 424 Eagle Rock Avenue, which now houses a vacant and dilapidated former bowling alley, which itself is a non-permitted use in the B2 zoning district where the property is located. This is now our sixth hearing before the board over the course of 8 months. Since the hearings have spanned over the course of 8 months, at this point, I'd like to take a step back and remind the board where this project began. Since we first appeared before the board, several significant modifications have been made to the plans as requested by the board as follows. The building height has been reduced by 1.5 feet to comply with the 35-foot height requirement for the zone. The orange band at the top of the building was removed. The facade materials were changed. The steep slope variances were eliminated entirely. The building footprint was reduced by approximately 5,500 square feet. This resulted in an overall gross floor area reduction of approximately 14,000 square feet and 141 units. All 66 spaces within the front yard of the property and existing non-conforming condition were eliminated in their entirety at the request of the board. On this point, I'll just note that should the township approach the owner to construct parking associated with Crystal Lake, or any other party, including the applicant, ever desires to construct parking in this area, we unequivocally understand that approval from the board would be required, as none is proposed at the current moment. We have also provided solar panels on the roof and 2 parking spaces to be utilized by the public. As to those 2 parking spaces, we do believe this is a benefit to the overall application. Today, while the public may park on the proposed development site, there's no legal right to do so. With the subject proposal, public storage would legitimize the use of 2 spaces for the public in an effort to be a good corporate citizen. Now, to address the merits of the application that's before the board this evening for a vote. You heard extensive planning proofs at the last hearing to support the grant of the application. The new variances created by this application boil down to 3. A use variance for the proposed self-storage use, height for an additional half story, although the proposal does meet the code requirement for height as measured in feet, and for the number of loading spaces. Without restating the totality of the testimony that's been provided, I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the key points that have been made related to these variances. Starting with the use variance. The proposal is to demolish an existing vacant and dilapidated building formerly used as a non-permitted bowling alley use, and to replace it with another non-permitted use. In this regard, the applicant must demonstrate that the proposed site is particularly suited for the proposed use, in spite of the fact that the use is not permitted in the zone. The test is not that there are no other potential locations for the use, nor does it demand evidence that the project must be built in a particular location. Rather, the applicant must demonstrate that the general welfare is served because the use is fitted in the particular location. We submit this burden has been met. The general welfare is served by this use. At the first hearing, the Vice President of Public Storage testified that there is a market demand and need for self-storage facilities within the municipality. He further indicated that this holds true notwithstanding the fact that the board had previously granted an approval for another self-storage facility on Pleasant Valley Way. This testimony was accepted by the board. Our planner also provided extensive proofs on how the subject property is an ideal location for the proposed use. She explained that while self-storage is permitted within the township's industrial district, the goods that are stored within in a public storage facility are not industrial in nature. Rather, public storage caters to the residential small business customers. Personal goods rather than industrial goods are stored within the facility. To that end, she opined that the proposed self-storage use is akin to the types of uses that are permitted within the B2 zoning district, including personal service and retail stores. Moreover, the site is particularly suited for the use due to its proximity to residential areas of the township, which is public storage's customer base, but not within a residential neighborhood. And it's also in close proximity to 2 county roadways, Eagle Rock Avenue and Prospect Avenue, which offer convenient access to persons wishing to access the facility. Further, the subject property is 11 times the minimum required lot area and is able to accommodate the use. Additionally, the property has many unique characteristics that make it uniquely suited. It's a flag lot. The proposed building is proposed to be set back over 370 feet from the road frontage, and the proposed building is barely visible from Eagle Rock Avenue. It is also isolated from residential uses and residential zoning districts by topography and substantial buffers, with the nearest residence being located over 200 feet away from the facility. These buffers, I should add, are not going away anytime soon. They include lands that are listed on the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Open Space Register and land occupied by a stormwater detention facility servicing an existing residential development. With respect to the intensity of the use, the proposed self-storage use is a far less intense use than the former bowling alley or any of the permitted or conditionally permitted uses within the district. This fact was affirmatively established through our traffic report and traffic testimony. The daily trips generated by the bowling alley was approximately 300 trips per day, whereas the proposed self-storage use is estimated at 153 trips per day. The proposed use is also significantly lower than any permitted or conditional uses in the district by literally hundreds and in some instances thousands of trips a day, as detailed in the traffic report. For instance, a senior housing project, which is the lowest traffic generating use of any of the permitted or conditionally permitted uses in the zone, would generate 570 trips daily, a permitted office building approximately 1,200 trips daily, and a retail store approximately 6,600 trips a day. I'd also like to point out that because it was brought up several times throughout the course of the hearing, that while the self-storage building footprint is larger than the former bowling alley, the proposed building coverage is lower than what is permitted by ordinance. The maximum permitted building coverage by ordinance is 40%, whereas 30.8% is proposed. Similarly, while the proposed building may be taller than the former bowling alley, the proposed self-storage use is far less intense, with approximately half the number of people visiting the site on a daily basis. As to the building height, the proposal is for a self-storage building at 3 stories in height, where 2.5 stories is permitted. Nevertheless, the building will comply with the overall maximum permitted height of 35 feet. Accordingly, there is no visual impact whatsoever from the proposed deviation. Not only is the building compliant with code requirement for height measured in feet, but it's also proposed to be set back 370 feet from Eagle Rock Avenue and will be minimally visible. Further, it is lower in height than other structures in the immediate vicinity along Eagle Rock, with buildings at 4 stories or greater, including communication towers that are located along Eagle Rock Avenue near the property. Testimony was also provided that the site accommodates any problems that would typically be associated with an additional half a story that's proposed. As just mentioned, the proposed use is much less intense than any permitted use within the district. Further, the site also proposes more parking than required by code. 16 spaces are required and 23 are proposed. As to the loading space variance, 0 loading spaces are proposed where 3 are required. You heard testimony earlier throughout the course of the hearings that users for the facility typically arrive by passenger vehicle or at best U-Haul trucks. The development proposal, however, proposes oversized parking spaces to satisfy the expected loading needs at 10 by 20 feet in dimension. The applicant is also providing 7 more parking spaces than required. Thus, in the event that an oversized vehicle is parked on site, there would still be ample parking for the customers available. The self-storage proposal also either eliminates or brings the property into greater conformity with zoning requirements than what exists today. The proposal eliminates the number and size of non-conforming monument signs. It eliminates impermissible parking in the front yard. It brings into greater conformity lot coverage. A reduction of approximately 12% is proposed from what exists today. And the proposal also has incorporated 17,000 square feet of pervious pavers, which actually brings the property below the maximum coverage requirements of 60% to 56% per the township stormwater regulations. There is also an increase in the side yard, adjacent to residentially zoned properties on the east by close to 12 feet. There's increased landscape buffer adjacent to residential properties as well, to the east by 9.5 feet and to the south by 7.3 feet. As to the advancement of the municipal land use law and the negative criteria, extensive testimony was provided that many of the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced by the approval of this application. Purpose A, promotion of the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. The proposed use is a much less intense use than the former bowling alley use or any of those permitted in the district. It increases safety on site with new lighting, controlled access around portions of the building, and security monitoring. The proposal also provides an improved stormwater control system. Purpose G, it advances by providing a sufficient space and an appropriate location for commercial uses, a self-storage use that is in demand. Purpose H, it promotes the development of lands that do not result in undue traffic congestion or blight. As stated numerous times, the proposed use is the lowest traffic generating use of any type of land use and far less than any of those permitted within the zoning district. It also promotes Purpose I. It promotes a visual, desirable environment by removing a dilapidated vacant building and replacing it with a brand new LED certified building, as well as providing increased landscaping around the property. The development proposal advances Purpose J. The proposal will redevelop an existing developed site, thereby preventing the degradation of the environment and urban sprawl. This proposal was also testified to by our planner, also advances many of the purposes and objectives of the municipal master plan, those being 7, 8, and 16. By repurposing an existing developed site to meet the community need for self-storage without decreasing the town's limited supply of open and undeveloped land in an appropriate location. By promoting the safe and efficient flow of traffic, as the proposed use would generate far less traffic than any of those uses permitted within the B2 district. And it also encourages economic development and redevelopment compatible with the suburban character of the township. The self-storage facility will also bring a tremendous tax rateable to the town with very minimal impact on the township's municipal services such as police, fire, or burden the school system. For all these reasons, stated now and throughout the course of the hearings, the applicant strongly believes that it has satisfied the proofs for the board to act favorably upon this application. The self-storage use is proposed in an appropriate location, advances many of the purposes of the municipal land use law, and the relief requested may be granted without a substantial detriment to the public good, zone plan, or zoning ordinance. To the contrary, and for the reasons articulated, the granting of this variance would in fact be a benefit. Accordingly, we respectfully request that the board act favorably upon this application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. John Basta. That concludes the application. We have heard from the applicant. We have heard from members of the public, interested parties. It is now time for the board to deliberate and eventually vote on this application. I am going to exercise the chair's prerogative to speak first with regard to how I believe this application should be decided. This is the primary core of this application is for a D1 use variance pursuant to NJSA subpart 70D 40:55 capital D hyphen 70 lowercase g. As such, the burden is upon the applicant, not upon anyone else, to establish by credible evidence that it has satisfied the criteria commonly known as the affirmative criteria and the negative criteria. In this particular case, not only is the applicant seeking a D1 variance, the applicant is seeking 8 separate C variances. That is significant because the applicant's primary argument, actually only argument, with regard to the affirmative criteria as set forth by council, as well as the planning report and planning testimony, is that this particular piece of property is particularly suited to this proposed use. That has not been established in any way, shape, or form. Let us begin with the observation, which has not been mentioned, that this township already provides areas in the community which permit self-storage units as permitted uses. The industrial zones in the community allow this use. It was the municipality in adopting the zoning ordinance that made that determination. If we're going to have self-storage units in the community, put them in the industrial zones. That was set forth in the master plan. That was set forth in the zoning ordinance. There is an accepted tenet that applies to this board, which is that zoning should be accomplished by ordinance rather than by variance. If the community wanted to expand the areas within West Orange where storage units should be located, then with respect to the re-examination of our master plan, and we've had 2 re-examinations since the 2004 plan was adopted, the most recent one being in 2010, then the master plan would have suggested additional locations for storage units. That does not appear anywhere in the master plan or any of the re-examination reports. And of course, we are here because the ordinance does not permit self-storage units in this location. I need to step aside for one moment because something that was said tonight was rather poignant and something that we all know, but sometimes don't enunciate. And that is that decisions that we make as a board are not just for today and tomorrow. They extend many years, 20, 50, 60, 80 years into the future. If we approve this project, you will have this self-storage unit on this awkwardly configured property next to a substantial public amenity, namely Crystal Lake, forever, in perpetuity. So please do not vote for this application without taking into consideration the long-ranging impacts on this community. There are permitted uses that could be placed on this property that would be far more compatible with Crystal Lake and the Eagle Rock Reservation, which is across the street, and the Lenny Lenape Trail, which goes right to the front of this property, and other amenities that make West Orange the vibrant community that we all enjoy so much. In presenting their case, the applicant agrees that the Medici case, decided at 107 New Jersey 1 in 1987, applies. And again, they've plucked from that case the concept of particularly suited. What is there about this site that cries out for a storage facility? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. It wasn't good as a bowling alley. It's going to be less effective as a self-storage unit. Although it hasn't been stressed by the applicant, and for good reason, this should be viewed as an expansion or an intensification of a prior non-conforming use. Bear with me just one moment. Prior non-conforming uses are not favored under the law. I cite to the decision of our Supreme Court in Belleville versus Perillos Incorporated, reported at 83 New Jersey 309, decided in 1980. That's a long time ago. And the law has been very clear. And I quote, Because non-conforming uses are inconsistent with the objectives of uniform zoning, the courts have required that, consistent with the property rights of those affected with substantial justice, meaning we can't take away a non-conforming use once it exists. That was my insertion. Non-conforming uses should be reduced to conformity as quickly as compatible with justice. It is our job to eliminate non-conforming uses, not continue them, and certainly not expand them or intensify them. Similarly, in another Supreme Court decision, Grundlehner versus Dangler, that's Grundlehner versus Dangler, reported at 29 New Jersey 256, decided even longer ago in 1959. The court specifically held, since the non-conforming uses were generally discordant with their surroundings, it was the fervent hope that they would in time wither and die and be replaced with conforming uses. The bowling alley is withering if it's not already dead, and should be replaced with a conforming use. The Grundlehner case goes on to hold that non-conforming uses may not be enlarged as of right, except where the enlargement is so negligible or insubstantial that it does not fairly warrant judicial or administrative notice or interference. Although counsel says that the footprint of this building was reduced from what they originally proposed, what they originally proposed and what they are presently proposing is an intensification of the footprint of the existing building. The existing building has a footprint of approximately 25,000 square feet. And while their initial proposal was for a 40,000 square foot footprint, it's now 35,000 square feet. It's still bigger and more intense than the existing non-conforming use, so that it constitutes an enlargement. Moreover, and more significantly, is the fact that the existing building contains a total of 25,000 rentable square feet. The proposal from this applicant is to increase that to 3 stories or 105,000 square feet, 4 times more intense in volume and scope than what exists today and what is not permitted in the zone. So the concept of non-conforming use on this property cries out for a denial of the application. Excuse me one moment. As I said earlier, the master plan reexaminations did not provide for any change in the permitted uses of this property. I also referred the board to our planning director's report, the initial report from Mr. Greigel dated August 13, 2021, which still remains in effect because the subsequent reports from our planner served as supplements to, not replacements for. And on page 5, Mr. Greigel recounts that as long ago as the site plan review advisory board meetings for this applicant, through the 5 hearings prior to now, there was a great discussion about the concerns of the boards, at least this board member, for Crystal Lake, which is an amenity for the community as a whole. Mr. Greigel observed that the applicant was asked to consider providing access to Crystal Lake, which is only accessible through from a legal standpoint, according to counsel, through the office property, which is located a substantial distance away, and which, as I pointed out, is not accessible to the handicapped members of our community. There's a stairway and there's a long walk from the permitted parking to an area of the lake. But interestingly, the applicant seeks to eat its cake and have it too, because on the one hand, it tells us that there is no direct access from this property to the lake, that there's an intervening stretch of land, very small, thin sliver owned by MCI or Verizon or whatever I didn't do the title search as to who actually owns it, but it's the office property immediately to the west. And that may be true, but yet the applicant now praises itself for providing 2 parking spaces for the benefit of the community, which provide access to the lake. So either there's access or there isn't. Either they are willing to cooperate and provide this amenity for the community, or they're not. That inconsistently jumps out off the page. Further, in Mr. Greigel's report, he quotes excerpts from the township's 2019 Open Space and Recreation Plan, which is part of the master plan. And under the recreation recommendations, it refers to Crystal Lake. Under the site improvement recommendations, it refers to Crystal Lake. And as an action plan for the next 5 years, it talks about developing a design for Crystal Lake facilities, including access and parking. The only handicap accessible parking for the lake is found on the subject property. If we are to approve this application, we are for many years into the future denying access to the lake. When we requested that parking spaces for the lake be included along that strip, the applicant said no. This is not an applicant who is seeking to be responsible and work with the members of this community. That was a very simple, basic request that the applicant refused to comply with. We can't enforce it as a condition. I agree with Ms. John Basta. However, many times in these applications, applicants willingly accept conditions that might not otherwise be imposed unilaterally by the board in order to show good citizenship and a desire to benefit the community. This applicant does not seek to benefit this community one iota. Let's talk about the other issue. And I want to make it very clear that my no vote on this application, which will be forthcoming, spoiler alert, that's what I just said, is based on what I've just said concerning the use, the failure of the applicant to meet the criteria. These other issues, although brought to the table by the applicant, are peripheral, but add to the lack of credibility of this applicant. It was the applicant who told us about the proposed license for the parking areas on the stem leading up to the property. We didn't know about it. The applicant told us about it. In fact, the applicant sent us a copy of section 8.10 of the contract of sale pursuant to which the applicant will be acquiring title to the property. And that section goes on for 3 or 4 pages talking about licensing parking for use by off-site properties, other properties. Bear with me one moment. January 20th, on the record, council specifically stated that there will be no license agreement. When I asked for a copy of the contract amendment, none was forthcoming. We are not being dealt with honorably. If there is no license, then we should have been provided with the proof. If this application is approved, there will be a license back to the present owner. And we have no information whatsoever as to how much parking will be provided, who will be given that parking, what the circulation is going to be. And while I agree with Ms. John Basta that somebody would have to come back before the board in order to get it approved, we are being asked to approve a concept without any logic or reasoning attached to it. I also point out that the section of our ordinance, which is somewhat unique, where's Mr. Greigel's report? Bear with me one more moment. Here it is. In Mr. Greigel's March 16th supplement to his report to the board, he quotes from section 25-12.1K of the land use regulations, which was also cited by Ms. John Basta in her letter to the board dated March 14th. What that section does is permit off-street parking on properties within 250 feet of the lot on which the principal building is located. We don't know what the principal building is. This section of our ordinance was intended to benefit other properties, not this property in question. And it was incumbent upon the applicant to tell us who they want to use the parking and for what purposes. I also point out that in the public notice issued by the applicant, it states that the applicant also seeks to maintain approximately 32 parking spaces, and that's been taken out. But the important part is that it refers to businesses and/or properties that may or may not be located within 250 feet of the property. They can't even tell us whether or not they're going to provide parking for the Kmart shopping center or for the CVS. They want to reserve the right to do it for anybody, not just in accordance with our ordinance. Further to council's letter of March 14th, and I do not quarrel with Ms. John Basta's analysis of whether or not this board has the power to impose a condition based upon the type of ownership. I agree. For example, historically, it has to do with whether a property is going to be subjected to the condominium regime or used as rental properties. That's of no moment in deciding whether or not to approve a proposed application along those lines. In this particular case, however, we're talking about two principal uses on one lot. And while the B2 zone does permit two principal uses, my interpretation of that provision is that it be two principal permitted uses. That's the intent of the ordinance. I go one step further because in that March 14, 2022 letter, council cites us to the case of Tirpak, T-I-R-P-A-K, versus Borough of Point Pleasant Beach Board of Adjustment, reported at 457 NJ Super 441, Appellate Division, decided 2019. I made the mistake of reading the case. And on page 445, this is what the court instructs us to do. If the board wanted to preserve the single family character of the zone, in this case, the B2 character of the zone, it never should have approved the variance. It is now too late to rescind the variance itself. So the case cited by counsel tells us to deny the variance for those reasons. With respect to the testimony of submitted on behalf of the applicant, we have to weigh the testimony, and we, as the trier of fact, determine credibility. I dare say even the applicant has conceded that its architect, Mr. O'Brien, was incredible. He testified at the very first hearing and very blithely referred to us as South Orange, and then admitted that he had never been to the site. The applicant recognized that and produced another architect a couple of meetings later. The interesting and only consistency between the architects is they both stated that from an architectural standpoint, this can be a two-story building. From an architectural standpoint, based on the applicant's own witnesses, there's no reason for us to consider a variance for a third story. What the variance for the third story does is it increases the intensification and expansion of the non-conforming nature of the proposed use. Mr. Yates, on behalf of the applicant, testified also. Now, Mr. Yates is not an expert. He was not qualified as an expert. His testimony falls within the classic example of net opinions. He stated conclusions. He stated there's a need. He didn't tell us what the need is. He didn't tell us what the vacancy factor is on storage units in the general area. He didn't even tell us how many other storage units there are in the general area. He didn't tell us what the need is, what the requirements are. He just made the conclusory statement that there is a need. Basically, Mr. Yates was trying to tell us that from an economic standpoint, he needs 3 stories, and he needs 105,000 square feet, and he needs something like 900 units. When Mr. Schwarzbaum questioned him about his economic analysis, he could not even identify the cap rate used, which is a critical element of any such economic analysis. Bear with me just one moment. I can't find where the case is that I want to speak to. Where did I put it? Just bear with me one moment. With regard to the economics as testified to by Mr. Yates, the law is very clear. No C2, and excuse me, I'm quoting from Kaufman versus Planning Board for Warren Township, reported at 110 New Jersey, 551 New Jersey Supreme Court, 1988, at page 563, where the court spoke to no variance should be granted, quote, when merely the purposes of the owner will be advanced. The grant of approval must actually benefit the community in that it represents a better alternative for the property. The economics, while they may be an element, do not drive that determination. My final observations relate to traffic. And while I do not quarrel with the assertions that the proposed use will generate less traffic than some permitted uses, although how that analysis could be deemed accurate without determining the specific permitted uses. There's one glaring cavernous hole in the traffic testimony presented by the applicant. This is an application for a use variance. In this context, the applicant must establish safe and efficient ingress and egress to and from the site. There has been absolutely no testimony regarding safe and efficient ingress and egress other than, again, a conclusory net opinion statement that the driveway has worked for the past umpteen years. That's ridiculous. The area outside the driveway was dramatically revised by the County of Essex approximately 5 years ago. It is now 5 full lanes of east and west traffic directly outside the driveway. A competent presentation would have included a suggestion, for example, that during the morning and evening peak hours, left-hand turns in and out of the property be prohibited. All you have to do is drive by there during the peak hours and you see cars coming out of the office building, coming out of the other office building, coming out of the gasoline station, trying to make a left-hand turn onto Eagle Rock Avenue, and they block the westerly flow of traffic. This is not safe and efficient. There's been no testimony as to how it becomes safe and efficient. Accordingly and respectfully, I have stated that I will be voting no, and I urge my fellow board members to vote in the same fashion. That concludes my remarks. I open the floor to other members of the board to speak. Fellow board members, anybody wish to raise their hand? Mr. Redwine.
Yeah, my remarks will be very short. I agree with everything that the chairman just said. I think that was an excellent recitation of the requirements and the failure to meet the requirements. But my primary concern coming into tonight was something that the chairman said a few hearings ago, that if we were to vote in favor of this application, we would be hardening the exemptions that are already in place. And to me, that seems quite contrary to what we should be doing. And I appreciate the chairman's recitation of the sort of legal background for that sense that I had prior to this evening. I'm also going to be voting no on this application, and I urge my fellow board members to do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Redwine. Any other board member wish to speak?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Even.
Thank you.
You need to turn your microphone on, please. It's on now. It looks like it. Okay.
Okay. I rarely agree with you, but this evening I sing your praises and your presentation, both of them being excellent. And I visited the site in October, which I visit every site that comes before us, and I was appalled at the way the site looked. There was storm damage from the previous big storms. There was debris from the borings, which, by the way, the borings would be for a bigger building, and the debris was piled at least 7 or 8 feet high.
Your microphone went off, Mr. Even.
Sorry.
No, you're okay now. You're okay now.
Okay. And so I was appalled with that. And then I also realized that there were 32 illegally parked cars on the site that I assumed were from the adjacent office building to the east, because the adjacent office building from the east was under some renovation and they couldn't park underneath the building as it was the original design of that building. So, I don't know where they got permission to park in the lot, but they were using 32 spaces illegally. And one of our issues was that if they needed to change their parking, they would have to come back to us. So they never came to us. And then there was the whole Verizon thing, landscaping, which the applicant's attorney said she tried to contact them, but they never responded. I can't believe that. I mean, I believe that's true because I don't think she would tell a fib about that. But there are such things as certified return receipt letters. If we would have had a letter from them that said that they're not interested in doing this, or that proved that she contacted them, that would have been a positive aspect. And one of their reasons was that they didn't know what the cost would be to maintain that landscaping. In my mind, what could the cost be? I maintain my lawn for about $120 a month.
Your microphone slipped off again, Mr. Eden.
Oh.
There you go. Okay.
That's because my fingers are not strong enough to hold the bar down, but I'll try to get anyway. So I'm completely behind you on everything you said and then some. I was involved, the whole thing with the storage building and industrial zone, I was involved with the original storage building, which is on Central Avenue. I call it the original because it's the oldest storage building in town, which was, I did some architectural work for the owner on that building. And so I was familiar with it. And when I did that work, I included landscaping, and he was very negative to it. And I said, this is what you do when you own a building in town and you try and you want to impress somebody, you put some trees on the property. It's not going to, and in fact, you have to maintain those trees. And that was 25 years ago. He has not maintained those trees, and it bothers me to no end why nobody does anything about it. So that just goes to show you that we have a real purpose.
Your microphone went off again, Jerry.
We have a real purpose when we review these sites and compare it to what Mr. Greigel says and what our engineer says. And
It went off again.
It's working.
Does that conclude your remarks, Mr. Even?
I guess you want me to conclude because.
No. I'm giving you as much time as you want. It looked to me like.
All right, so that's where I stand. I stand behind you in everything you said and then some. And I agree with you and would urge my fellow board members to vote no on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Even. Other members of the board wish to speak? Mr. Schwarzbaum.
I concur with everything the chairman has said. In addition, I want to, what really pushing me over the barrier of voting again, concurring with the vote of not to proceed, is the public. Not one person came forth to say that they were in favor of it. That, there was this application is not, it requires a D1 variance. We as a board had asked the applicant on numerous occasions to bring this application more in conformance with the various C variances And the applicant basically said, this is our application, take it or leave it. And as a result, I do not believe that the applicant is meeting the criteria, as Chairman Neuer elaborated on. And I would urge everyone to vote no.
Thank you, Mr. Schwarzbaum. Yes, Mr. Ritchie.
Mr. Chairman and fellow board members, short and sweet. One of the things I'd like to make a little comparison about this, because I don't have to say it, enough members have talked about the project with negative comments that, from my point of view, I see where it's going. Having said that, it's sort of like politics. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to. It's my belief that everything your party stands for is not correct, and everything the other people's party stands for is wrong. There's right and wrong and good and bad and everything on every political front, and there is the same in applications. There are good things about an application, there are bad things about an application, and the best, what we need to do is try to find, at least go for the more than 50-50. We want more good coming out of an application than bad. This application has good things about it. It has the fact that it is going to generate a very small amount of traffic. That's clear. It's not a debate about it. This is the way this business works. So from this location, from getting back on and off of Eagle Rock Avenue and what's going to happen up there, this is fantastic from that point of view. They said they're going to put solar panels on the roof. That's a plus. You have to give them credit for what they do present it. Having said that, there are negatives also, and a couple of them were sticklers in my side. I've been to this lake several times when my son was small, and I would, go up there when they had fishing and all of that, but it's not the property owner's responsibility to give parking for the town lake, although it didn't seem like it would be that difficult for them. Listen, they wound up eliminating half of the parking spaces on the flagpole anyway. Why not give a whole bunch of those or some of those to parking for the township in the lake? The biggest thorn that I've had about the project is not getting a clear answer from the applicant what was going to happen with those two-sided parking. Even when it got changed to one-sided parking, it was still never clear, and it was like, if you want to come in with an application, and when you're coming in front of the zoning board, you're asking for something that you do not have the right to do. So you've got to make it beneficial, not only for the applicant, which it is going to be beneficial for the applicant, but you got to make it beneficial for the town. If the chairman said there's positive criteria and there's negative criteria, and you want that positive criteria to be something to say, well, maybe this is a good reason to vote and approve this for. So bottom line is, for the applicant's point of view, I'm sorry to say I'm going to vote against this application. But having said that, I didn't think that, there were merits to it. They just, the merits did not outweigh the detriments.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Any other, Dr. Straker, even though you won't be voting, your comments are always welcome if you wish to say anything.
No, I'm good. I think everyone kind of spoke on what I would have said, so I'm encouraged. Thank you.
Other members of the board, Mr. Sussman or Ms. Weiss, do you care to make any statements on the record?
Yeah, I'll go. If that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead, Mr. Sussman. You have the floor.
I agree with Mr. Ricci. I was conflicted about this application because I think a self-storage facility is a reasonably good use for this property. It's set back off of Eagle Rock Avenue. It is as the testimony showed and Mr. Ricci summarized. It's a low volume traffic generator. You're not going to get a lot of cars in there. It is set back off the road. It's kind of off the beaten path. But I too had reservations about the whole issue with the parking and access to the lake. So weighing everything together, I think I agree with you, and I'm going to vote against this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Weiss, do you care to speak on the application one way or the other, or not?
Well, I would just, I will say that Mark and Peter, I agree with you totally. I think that this application did have a lot of merit. I don't agree with a number of things that Mr. Neuer said about why we would deny it. Obviously, they need 5 votes. They do not have it. I too was very concerned about the access to the lake. That was my major concern. And I think had they given us access to the lake, which we had asked for, and clearer information about the parking, I would have definitely voted in favor of this application. I disagree. One of the people in town spoke about being known as a self-storage town, and I think that's not what this would be. And would I rather have this than a Kmart? Absolutely. Would I rather have this than many other possible approved help me, applications? I would, but because of those other two, and in deference to my board members who feel strongly, I would like to make this unanimous, and so therefore I will also vote against it. But I think it could have turned out differently had the applicant changed their tactics and done things differently. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much. That appears, does any other member of the board wish to supplement their comments? If not, then I will offer a resolution that for the reasons stated by all board members on the record just now, including a finding of fact that the applicant has failed to sustain either the affirmative criteria or the negative criteria to support the grant of a D variance, and that the application, that the proposal is not particularly suited to this location, I move to deny the application in all respects. Is there a second to my motion?
I'll second your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Redwine. Ms. Chandler, would you be kind enough to call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Even,
I vote yes.
Mr. Redwine,
I vote yes on the offered resolution.
Mr. Ricci,
Yes to deny.
Mr. Schwarzbaum,
Yes to deny.
Mr. Sussman,
Yes to deny.
Mrs. Weiss,
Yes to deny.
Chairman Neuer.
Yes to deny. Ms. John Basta, despite your disappointment, I want to commend you on your conduct throughout these proceedings. You've always been well prepared. You've always presented professionally to the board. We appreciate your efforts, and you're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And despite the no vote, we appreciate your time throughout the course of these proceedings. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thank you. I know we have more items on the agenda, but we've hit 9:29, which is usually the time that we take our break, and it has been a long hour and a half. So let me put us into recess for 10 minutes. We will resume at 9:40, and the first application will be ZB 21-23, Cy Hiram Trust Incorporated. We are in recess.
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask one question.
Certainly, Mr. Hess.
I'm not involved with the remaining two applications, so
Yeah,
with your permission.
yes, you are graciously excused.
Great. Thank you very much, and everybody have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Alice,
Yeah,
Alice Byrne. When you're doing the resolution, you may want to get the transcript because the video. Because I have notes all over the place. I'll be happy to send you my notes, but they were all over the place.
Well, I hope I had good notes, but if I need to, I will.
Okay.
We can send you the transcript as well, the video.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you could, yeah, do that. Good idea. Thanks.
Sure will.
Megan, can you give me back my video? Thank you.
It's 9:40 and hopefully everybody's coming back quickly.
I didn't see Bobby Williams on. I see somebody logged in for him. Is he here?
He's with the applicant.
Oh, he's with the applicant? That's good. Okay.
I'm gonna switch them back to Bobby Williams then.
And Ms. Byrne, I don't usually get the recording until Monday morning. So as soon as I receive it, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No rush.
Okay, let's see how we're doing. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's Mr. Ritchie. We're just waiting for Mr. Eben. There's Gary. Okay. It's 9:41 p.m. o'clock. Recess has ended. We're back on the record. Are we recording, Megan?
Yes, you're all set.
Great. Okay, the meeting is back in session. And let the record reflect that all board members are present again. That's the 7 regulars and Dr. Straker. And we now have application ZB 21-23, Ram Trust Incorporated for property at 23-27 Laurel Avenue. Counsel, your appearance for the record, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Neuer, we have somebody named Carol Williams that is in the attendees, and that might be the
That's
attorney.
Bob. That's Mr. Williams.
Okay, I'm gonna move him over.
Good.
And then you should be good to go. He's coming in.
He sometimes pretends to be his wife.
I'm gonna switch. I'll change his name.
Mr. Williams, turn on your video and microphone, please. Now it says Robert Williams. Mr. Williams, you're holding up my meeting.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out why you don't have my video.
There's a little button at the bottom left that says video.
Okay,
Move your pointer down.
we got it, I think now. Stop video, start video. Start video, I don't know why it's not coming on, let's see here. Try it again.
The problem
There
there.
you are. There you are.
Here we
The
go.
problem was, Mr. Williams, that you gave your sign in to the applicant, and that messes up your thing. If you want the applicant in the future, I can send a special link to them. You just let me know. But you
I
guys,
thought she got it separately when we noticed, but I apologize.
no, that's okay. You're good to go now. Have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Williams,
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robert C. Williams, appearing on behalf of the applicant. We appear before you tonight, coincidentally, 1 year after we opened the temple. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary, April 3rd. However, tonight we're appearing before you to ask for an amended site plan approval to make some very minor changes to the approved site plan. The first thing we're requesting is that we located a gazebo on the property, and it was originally intended for facing the property, the front left-hand side. As Mr. Petrie, our engineer and planner, will testify, that the site has turned out not to be an appropriate site. It's not safe to put the gazebo there. Access is poor, so we're asking to relocate it to the facing the building, the right side towards the rear. And in doing so, we are proposing this relocation, but we also want to make it very clear that we would accept a special condition, should the board approve the amended plan, that this gazebo would not be used for any events such as weddings or any other ceremonies. It's primarily a decorative item. There's no flooring to it. Originally, we had proposed to put a fountain with an idol in the middle of it. We're not going to do that. It's simply going to be a decorative item placed to the rear, but will not contain any activities such as weddings, as was a concern of one of our neighbors. So we would accept that, and we want to make that very clear up front. The second thing we're requesting is that to the rear of the property, originally approved a concrete wall. You've received a memo from John Linston dated August 31st, 2020, the then forester, who's recommending that the wall not be completed at the rear of the property, that it would be more appropriate based on the shrubbery that's there, the trees that would have to come down, to put in a black chain link fence. And we would like permission for you to do that. They would not let us do it without returning to the board, and they would not give us permission to relocate the gazebo to the other side without returning to the board. The original resolution in 2015 had condition 3 and 4. My notice and application requested that you would delete the hour restrictions in conditions 3 and 4. However, upon further review, condition 4 is satisfactory. We don't propose any amendments to that, but we would like to amend condition number 3, which was part of the approval as consistent with the testimony of the applicant at that time, where it limited the hours from 8 to, I believe, 12, and then from 2 to 4 or 2 to 8, 7 days a week for prayer. And somebody can enter the temple for prayer. We're now requesting that condition be modified to permit the daily hours for prayer from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. We've also submitted our as-built dimensions for the site. There are some minor discrepancies from the original approval, actually inches, as a result of what we call construction tolerances. I don't believe any additional relief is needed for that. If the board thinks we are required to get additional relief, we would make an application, and we have noticed for a C2 variance for those who I consider to be very minor modifications to the constructed building. So with that, I would like to bring forth my engineer and planner, J. Michael Petrie, who I see has joined us on the screen. You swear Mr. Petrie in, Ms. Byrne?
Ms.
No,
Byrne?
yes, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to get my view back. My screen is acting weird. Mr. Petrie, would you just speak for me so I can see you?
Here I am.
There you go. Hi. Thank you for raising your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and professional address.
J. Michael Petrie, Petry, 155 Passaic Avenue in Fairfield, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Mr. Petrie. It is very good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be seen.
I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we've previously,
Yeah, he'll be accepted as an expert in the field of engineering and professional planning. Mr. Petrie's credentials are impeccable, and they've been approved by this board numerous times.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Petrie, would you briefly describe the original approval and what proposed changes we are requesting for the board this evening?
Certainly. I'm gonna share my screen if I can. Get that. Go there.
Yes, you should be fine.
That. Go right there and share. Okay, so what should be on the screen right now is the layout sheet, which was part of the approved set that was approved by this board originally. And Mr. Williams described two changes that we wanted to make. One was the fact that there was to be a fountain and gazebo located right here, literally to the left of the main building and to the right of the caretaker's house at a location outside of the walkway. And the second is that the existing wall that ran along the back of the property between the subject property and the properties immediately to the northeast was to be continued along that northerly property line all the way down to the end of what's marked on this as lot 1505. So the two changes that are being made, the change with regards to the wall was at the specific request of Mr. Linson. When he came to the site to do our tree removal, he refused to grant the tree removal permit for these trees that are located in the back, which he indicated would be necessary in order to construct the wall due to the size of the footing. Mr. Linson is correct. He also feared that that same footing would damage 3 trees on the adjacent property. And so he requested that we replace the wall with a chain link fence with slats for privacy at the same height, which was 6 feet. The applicant has no problem doing that. The construction official would not release us to make that modification without this board's approval. The second modification has to do with the location of the gazebo, which is supposed to have a fountain in it as well. And the board will recall, for those of you who were here, that the architect presented a rendering of this gazebo. And if I go down a bit, we're going to find that rendering. It is right there. That is the rendering with the fountain that was supposed to be placed at the location. But when the construction was completed, the walls in that area really made access to this gazebo difficult, if not impossible. And so for maintenance purposes, the applicant asked to relocate that. And in terms of the relocation, this is the plan that is before the board right now. Rather than having that in the location here at the front of the existing building and to the right of the caretakers, they put it at the rear right corner of the temple building. Similarly, that wall that we talked about would be replaced by a fence. And Mr. Linson's specific request to me was that the fence, rather than follow the property line, that the fence wiggle around the trees, kind of as is shown here, so that the fence does the least amount of disturbance to the tree roots and yet provides the same screening impact. So we've tried to depict that on this plan as Mr. Linson and I discussed at the time that he issued his memo. So those are the two changes that were made. As Mr. Neuer indicated in his opening, there's also a request to change condition number 3. Condition number 3 read in the resolution that the daily prayer hours would be limited from 8 a.m. to noon, and then again from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And due to our recent experiences with separation and limitations associated with gathering, we would appreciate the opportunity to allow our congregants the opportunity to pray anytime between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. It's my recollection that this condition was tied directly to the testimony of the applicant at the original hearings and was not in response to a board concern. And I raised that because I think that was exactly what Mr. Greigel asked for in his letter, an explanation as to why the changes are made and how they affect the conditions that the board imposed. Finally, as Mr. Williams indicated, the as-built survey has allowed us to provide for the bulk requirements as they relate to the original approvals. There are minor modifications that are associated with both construction tolerances as well as the 3 different surveyors who performed the work. Our firm originally prepared the outbound survey for the property. The contractor hired a second surveyor who performed all of the stakeout. Unfortunately, that surveyor passed away due to COVID, and they had to have a third surveyor come out and do the as-built survey. So I'm not going to go into the minor changes in detail because I believe that they are minor. We're talking about an inch here and an inch there for the most part, which are generally construction tolerances. They don't really affect the original positive and negative criteria that was offered as part of the approval process. If the board needs more detail on that, I have it available, but I believe that what we've put forth, and I think one of the significant concerns was that of impervious coverage. And you'll note that the impervious coverage drops significantly in this plan from the approved plan. And part of the reason for that is because the wall is a structure that has a width and is considered impervious, and the fence is a structure that doesn't really have a width and it's not considered impervious. So we save impervious based upon the fact that we're not building the wall.
Mr. Petrie, is it also your understanding that as a result of the memo that we received from the current forester, Ron Farr, dated January 26, 2022, that the applicant will replace the 7 dead trees that he's identified when the fence is constructed?
Yes, that is correct.
And no further questions of Mr. Petrie.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Petrie. The new location of the gazebo.
Yes.
Am I correct that that's not visible from the street?
It is not visible from the street because of the berm in the front of the property. It is set back almost 75 feet from our rear property line and over 40 feet from our side property line. So it is probably about 160, 170 feet from the street.
Okay. That's my only question. Members of the board, questions for Mr. Petrie? Ms. Weiss?
No, I don't. Yes, my question is, who is the person who planted those fabulous bushes in the back? That is the most amazing coverage you have, setting up a wall of gorgeous trees. I took a picture. Those high trees, were those planted by you or is that the neighbor?
I can't answer that question, Ms. Weiss, but I appreciate the comment.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
We did extensive plantings on the right property line that I'm aware of. There was a lot of money put into landscaping for this project.
Wow. And I agree. I think that in going like this, zigzagging the wall will be much better. It was phenomenal, phenomenal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're real happy with the way it turned out.
Beautiful.
Other members of the, yes, Mr. Ritchie.
Yes, Mr. Petrie. Two questions. The fence, I like the idea of it weaving between the trees so you don't mess with the trees, except there's a problem because I've dealt with it before, putting a chain link fence around a whole lot of larger trees. When sizable branches over time die and fall off, the fence gets damaged rather easily. Is the fence really required? What is the purpose of the fence? Why do you need a fence at all?
The fence was a form of screening that was offered to the neighbors when we designed the project. Actually, it was at that point, it was supposed to be an extension of the wall. So that was the purpose of it, to provide screening to the neighbors.
You understand my only concern is if you put the chain link fence up, a big tree branch comes down because there's plenty of them, you're weaving between them, damages the fence and it's way back there. Nobody pays attention to it. It stays that way. I hate to see that happen.
I don't disagree with you on the fence, on the potential for fences being damaged. And it is probably no different than a wall being damaged by a falling tree, but I think the fence is going to be easier to repair than a wall would.
Okay. Second question. I was a little bit confused with the explanation about the gazebo. It's got no floor. What is it? What's it made out of? What's the purpose of it?
It's I apologize for the difficulty of the picture. I'll try to blow it up if I can a little bit.
Okay.
But basically this unit is something that that came from the packaging. This gazebo is in crates on the site today. It has been for over a year, probably a year and a half, but they couldn't get permission to put it up. So it's got 8 posts. It's got a roof. It doesn't have a floor. It's basically coverage.
And if they're not going to use it for a wedding or anything like that, what are they going to use it for?
Well, it's a decorative feature, in the landscape. I think, if I were there on a nice day, I might spend time, underneath it, if it's sunny, to get shade. I think it would be nice, a good photo spot if you're celebrating an anniversary or something.
Okay. I don't have an objection. I was just curious. So thank you. And thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Any other members of the board? Thank you, Mr. Schwarzbaum.
What are the dimensions of the gazebo? What's the diameter?
It's octagonal in shape, and it's approximately 10.5 by 10.5. Well, 10.5 on the flat, 12 on the points.
Feet.
Feet, I presume.
Yes.
Sorry?
Okay.
Feet, Michael, feet.
Yeah. Okay, right. And the height?
I don't know the exact height of it, but I think the original dimensioned plan, I don't think it's any higher than the originally dimensioned plan. And that originally dimensioned plan was
19 feet.
Yeah, to the pinnacle.
Okay. Yeah, 19 feet to the pinnacle.
That is correct.
Okay, and how the fountain in the middle, what is the diameter of that?
The fountain, Mr. Schwarzbaum, the fountain is not going to be installed. It was originally intended, but it was intended for the front of the building. Now that it's going to be on the side of the building, they're not going to have the fountain there.
Okay, so this will just be an open space with a gazebo.
Correct.
You may not be the right person to answer this, but I'll ask it. I'm not familiar with religious aspects of the temple, do religious events typically occur under a gazebo like this?
No, I think the applicant is committed that they won't.
The condition that Mr. Williams stated is that there will be no events or ceremonies within the gazebo.
That is correct.
Okay. No, I'm fine.
Other members of the board, Mr. Petrie, would you take down your share screen just so that I can see the array? Any other member? That's Mr. Even. You have a question? Microphone on.
My question about the fountain was answered, but I don't know about lighting and electricity. Are they going to have electricity out there and lighting out there, or is there lighting? Is all the lighting in the building shining towards the gazebo?
There is no electricity or lighting proposed for the gazebo.
Anything else, Mr. Even?
That's all for right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other member of the board with questions for Mr. Petrie? I have one. Mr. Petrie, my understanding of the as-built survey is that it's not part of the application package. That's something that's submitted to the building department after the construction is complete. Am I correct?
That is correct, Mr. Neuer. And what we did was we superimposed all of the changes, the fence and the gazebo changes on that as-built survey and calculated the site data based upon the as-built survey, because there was concern at the municipal level specific to the impervious coverage.
Okay, what we have is an amended site plan to approve. Mr. Williams, I don't perceive the need for us to do anything with regard to an as-built survey.
I agree.
Sir?
I agree.
Okay, good. Do you have any further redirect for Mr. Petrie?
No, I don't. That would complete our application.
That completes your application?
Yes.
In less than one meeting.
It's duly noted, Mr. Petrie. I now, let's see, Mr. Greigel, do you have any questions? I'm sorry.
No, I asked a few questions in my memo. They've been addressed by the applicant, so I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members of the public, does anybody have a question? This is not the time for testimony or commentary. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Petrie based upon his testimony? Please raise your hand so that you can be recognized. Megan?
I'm not seeing anyone yet. It looks like there's no questions.
Okay, so the questioning portion for the public is closed. Mr. Williams, we're back with you, and I believe you just said that concludes your application?
Yes, sir. That does complete our application. I would ask the board to act favorably on it.
Okay, and what you're talking about is approving the relocation of the gazebo, changing the wall to a meandering fence. The conditions that you're seeking would be that the gazebo would not be used for religious ceremonies, events, or any other ceremonies. That we've already dealt with compliance with Mr. Linson's memo. We've already dealt with Mr. Farr's memo that the applicant in the spring of this year will replace the dead trees. And you're seeking relief from condition number 3 by changing the limitations on the number of hours to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week for prayer by individuals, not for actual services. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any member of the public wish to be heard in favor of or in opposition to this application?
Yes, we do have one member of the public. Excuse me. Liz Durkin. I'm so sorry. Please state your name and address for the record.
Your microphone is not on. There you go.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, Elizabeth Durkin from the Durkin firm. I had sent a letter of appearance on behalf of the neighbor, Tal Benzi, to the rear of the site.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just something else. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that I want to thank Mr. Williams and the applicant that we were able to work out any of the conditions that my client had regarding the approval that the applicant was seeking before the board, and all of those issues have been addressed by the board this evening.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Durkin.
Thank you so much. Oh, and the other thing my client wanted to let Ms. Weiss know, the plantings are his.
Ms. Weiss will.
And he appreciated the compliments.
Gorgeous.
We will echo Ms. Weiss's direct commentary. Any other member of the public wish to be heard on this application?
I'm not seeing any.
So then I will close the public portion. Members of the board, I'll start us off again. I don't see any real problems, real or imagined, with this application. It's rather benign. The temple is a credit to our community. It's beautifully built, well maintained. I have no doubt that if a tree falls on the fence, it will be fixed almost immediately. And even though I share Mr. Ritchie's concern about it happening, I don't have any concerns about the applicant because they've proven to be good citizens and maintaining their properties. So I would offer a resolution to approve the application with the conditions that consistent with the January 26, 2022 memorandum from the Township Forester, the 7 trees which have died be replaced when the fence is installed or in the spring of 2022, that the wall be the addition to the wall be replaced by a meandering chain link fence with slats, that the gazebo be relocated as shown on the revised site plan with the condition that there will be no events or ceremonies of any nature, religious or otherwise, within the gazebo. It is decorative only. That condition number 3 in our prior resolution be amended to change the limitation on the hours of use to allow for individual worship to take place between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days per week. This is not formal services, but individual congregants to come in and worship in their own way. And we don't have to do anything with the as-built survey. That's my motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Schwarzman, thank you so much. Ms. Chandler, would you be kind enough to call the roll?
Mr. Eben,
Mr. Eben, I don't see Mr. Eben.
where'd he go?
He may have dropped off.
Mr. Redwine,
Yes.
Mr. Ricci,
Yes.
Mr. Schwarzbaum,
Yes to approve.
Mr. Sussman,
Yes to approve.
Mrs. Weiss,
Yes.
Dr. Straker,
Yes.
and Chairman Neuer.
Yes to approve. Mr. Williams, Mr. Petrie, thank you both for your presentations this evening. Please send our best to your client. We appreciate what the temple has brought to our community and look forward to the relocation, actually the construction of the gazebo and the fence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That concludes this application. The next item on our agenda is application ZB 21-07 Rosenfeld for property at 1, 3, and 5 Maple Avenue, seeking a C variance. Is the applicant present?
Yes, I'm here. It's Larissa. I don't know why it doesn't show me on top. No idea.
It's because you shared the link that I guess Regina had sent you. Instead of
Yes.
The link that was directly sent to you, but I can change,
Yes.
change your name,
Okay. Thank you.
but you should get on camera.
There you are.
So do you see me now?
No, not yet.
I see you. Yeah, I see you.
I'm here, sorry. Yeah, it's because she's using my link, so I don't know that it's gonna work for her, but she's here, you just can't see her.
Well, it says applicant. What's her name?
Whose name? My name? The applicant's name?
Yes.
Yes, Larissa Rosenfeld.
Larissa Roosevelt. Can you take care of that, Megan, or?
Yes.
Thank you.
Find it. Can you mute me?
Hmm?
Can you mute me?
Ms. Roosevelt,
Do you want me to look for my link and log in?
No, you should be okay now. It's odd because it's saying that your video is on, even though it's not.
Yes, it is on. I know.
Do you have something covering maybe the camera?
No, it should work. Hold on a second.
Well, no, she's trying to help me, my daughter.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know why it's not working. But you can look for the link and delete it in my email.
That shouldn't be a problem now. We moved you over and you have access, so that should be okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I see the video is on the laptop, but for whatever, she can use my laptop if it's okay. She'll just come over.
All right, I can come. It doesn't really matter.
can you assist with that, Megan? I shouldn't say can you. I know. Would you please assist with that, which I know you will.
I can send the link to someone else, or she can log in with that link on a different device.
Ms. Rosenfeld's daughter, are you able to do that?
I believe that's what she mentioned she would do.
Okay, so
Yep.
okay, here I am. Okay, so
Do I swear in the applicant?
Well, we would if we could find the applicant.
We have her.
Ms. Koifman, what is your role in this and who are you?
she's my daughter,
Who's your daughter?
Regina. She's my daughter. It's her computer. I don't know why on my computer we can't get the camera to work.
I'm trying to ascertain what role you play in this application.
That's the applicant, Phil. That's Mrs. Rosenzweig. Her name is her daughter on it, but it's her. Her daughter is helping. That's the daughter's name. That's all, but that's the applicant.
Yeah, I'm just on her computer because on my computer we can't get the video to work for whatever reason.
Okay.
And my daughter's assisting me. That's all it is.
Okay, so you are the applicant. You're Ms. Rosenfeld.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so we'll just ignore that it says Koifman underneath.
I'm fixing that now.
Okay, that's great. And now, yes, Ms. Byrne, you may swear in the applicant. Is your daughter going to testify?
No, I guess not.
Okay.
It's cute.
I mean, it's up to you guys. I don't know. I don't know how it will go.
Okay, relax. We're doing just fine. Ms.
All right,
Byrne.
Mr. Rosenfeld, would you please raise your right hand?
Yes.
Do you swear or affirm your testimony you're about to give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Would you spell your first name and give us your address?
Larissa, Larissa. It's 135 Maple Avenue, West Orange, New Jersey, 07052.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Is it 1, 3, 5, or is it 135?
It's I really am not sure. It could be dashes or just 135. I know that. However, guys, you have it. We call it 5. It's easier for us, but
Okay, let's just make it easy. It's lot 26 in block 161.02. That's the subject matter of the application. Street address is Maple Avenue.
yeah, it's corner of Walker and Maple Avenue.
Thank you. Please
Thank you.
tell us what your application is, what you'd like to do.
Okay, so I hope it's the easiest and fastest application that you can hear tonight and approve. So my application is seeking a C1 variance for physical features under section 25-12.4B2 of the general ordinances, which states that not more than 30% of the area of minimum required front yard shall be used as a parking area.
Slow down just a little bit, please.
Sure.
Some of us have to take notes so that we can properly determine your application.
Okay, so in plain English, I'm seeking to add a circle driveway to the front of the house at the said address, 135 Maple Avenue, which would mean the use of more than 30% of the front yard as a parking area. So the application states the parking area of the front yard will be 994.5 square feet, increasing the minimum front yard parking area from 30% to 33%. The total impervious surface coverage of the front yard will increase from 327.5 square feet to 1,042.5 square feet. And the total impervious surface coverage of the property will increase from 3,606 square feet to 3,868 square feet. So we, I recently completed a full renovation of this home, which was a dilapidated old farmhouse. I would like to add the circle driveway to enhance the look of the property, increase the value of the property and surrounding homes, and add curb appeal. The approval of this variance would also enhance the access to the front door for us and allow elderly residents to enter and exit from the vehicle to the front door with ease and provide additional parking area for residents. Currently, we have multiple residents living in a home with multiple vehicles, and the property has a narrow driveway so that only one vehicle can make use of the driveway at a time. And also the front door is sort of far away from the main driveway. So I'm just asking for this application to be approved.
Mr. Greigel?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a site plan? Because I couldn't, when I looked at the links.
The application was initially filed and withdrawn, and it's actually from 2021.
Yes.
I had a survey that was marked up, hand drawn. So I don't know if I didn't notice in the links. This has been in my files for some time, so it's available. I can share it if that would be helpful.
It's in the application. It's like Mr. Greigel says, it's a survey that is hand drawn on.
Yeah, it would be better to put that up. But one question is, Ms. Rosenfeld, is this a boarding house?
No, not at all. I live there with my family.
Well, you said that there are multiple residents.
Yes, meaning that there's me and my kids and my mother stays here. That's all I mean. There are no boarding of anybody.
I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes, of course.
Would you be kind enough to post?
Yes, I'm just it's taking me a second to access it, and I can do that.
I have it up on mine if you want me to share mine.
Oh, okay. That's if you're ready. Sure. Yeah, I think I'm almost there, but either way, Diana, if you would like, go ahead.
Diana and her nimble fingers.
There you go. Perfect. Okay.
Is this the page that you're referencing, Mr. Greigel?
Yes. Yes, and there was also were calculations provided separately. I don't recall if those were submitted. I did review them myself, and I was satisfied because I had asked previously for the numbers to match this
They're linked as well in the. on the
engineered
agenda.
drawing, but they were provided the figures to get to the 33%, where 30% is the maximum permitted.
So, Ms. Roosevelt, it would be your intention to use that circular driveway as a driveway and also for parking purposes?
Just to park, to get out, to get access to that front door. As you see, it's a little bit on the side and it is kind of far from the main driveway.
So there would not be any cars parked there overnight?
I assume once the driveway is installed, it can be. Is that my understanding? But it doesn't have to be. There's parking in the back of the house.
Well, my concern is that there's nothing shown here with regard to landscaping to shield any parked vehicles from the visibility from the street. Do you intend to install any landscaping?
Yes, there will be landscaping around, of course. There's a lot of grass on the property and it will be all landscaped.
Grass is not really landscaping. I'm talking about trees and bushes.
You can't have it in the corner. We have it's a corner property and I don't have tree. There is a tree, there are two trees on the property, but I can't have trees and bushes because there will be no visibility as to the turns. So it's, you know, I'm not sure what you mean by bushes. There will be bushes around the house once this is all finished.
I'm talking about between the driveway and the street of Maple Avenue.
Correct.
Yeah, there is a small area between the driveway and the street. And it could be either grass or some bushes or flowers or whatever.
That sounds like a recommendation, Mr. Chairman. I think that makes sense for low bushes or some.
Yeah. There is a small area between the driveway and the street. It's not really that big, but yes.
That's where I was going, to break up the impact of any vehicles that are parked on the circular driveway.
Oh, sure. If that's, you know, yeah. I mean, if that's what you're asking, sure, it can be bushes, of course. Yeah, that would be nice. You know, that would be nice to put in, I think.
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in for a second?
Sure, Mr. Sussman.
Okay, I live in the area. I walk or drive past this property at least 4 or 5 times a week. I think in Mr. Greigel's report, he noted that this is an old survey, I believe from 2016.
Yes, that's correct.
Right? A lot of this house has been undergoing renovations for quite a while. I must commend the applicant. It looks a lot better now than it did.
Thank you. We're still working on it.
But a lot of work has been done where it says get rid of that side walkway. That walkway is gone. The concrete patio is gone. There's a deck there now. So this survey isn't really accurate.
I'm sorry, say that again about the deck.
Ms. Rosenfeld, you have to let the board member finish his statement before you start to speak, please. Continue, Mr. Sussman.
On this survey, it shows a concrete patio with a handwritten note that says get rid of the concrete patio. Well, there is a elevated deck there now.
Mhm.
And where it says get rid of the side walkway, that's gone. And the proposed driveway, that's probably an accurate representation of the location of it's gravel, it's not paved. But that's pretty accurate as to where that's located. But the patio's gone and there's a deck in its place now.
Well, thank you for that exposition. Ms. Rosenfeld, my concern is that we have to be able to approve a drawing that accurately depicts what's on the property. And what you presented to us, while we understand it's a money-saving effort, we need an actual site plan. We need to see what's on the property now, as well as what your proposed installations are, so that we can vote on it. I will have to tell you that I am favorably inclined personally, but I can't approve what you've submitted.
Yeah, well, the thing is that we renovated the house, but we didn't go beyond the footprint of the house. So yes, there is a deck in the back, but everything else, as far as the driveway and the front of the house, is just like as presented. So any new survey will be the same thing as far as the front of the house, there
I'm
will
sorry,
be
Ms.
no change.
Rosenfeld, Ms. Rosenfeld,
Yeah.
you're not listening. We
Uh-huh.
can't approve the drawing you've submitted. It doesn't give our building department anything to go by in terms of determining whether or not you've constructed what it is that this board may have approved. It's not in form for approval. You need to prepare a formal site plan.
Okay, so can I say something to you? Now, the only reason, okay, I have to say something to you, okay? The only reason the driveway is there that everybody sees is because there was a mistake in approving the curb cut, okay? So so I got the curb cut without the driveway itself being approved. So the contractor went to do the driveway, so to speak. Otherwise, you wouldn't even see that driveway. All you would see is grass. So when the new survey will be done, I doubt that he will be able to even put the driveway as if it would appear on the new survey because it's not installed yet. What's there is just a rough sketch that the contractor did by mistake.
Ms. Roosevelt, I'm trying to help
So I'm
you.
not exactly sure what it is you want to see on the new survey.
No, I don't want a survey. I want something known as a site plan. Engineers know what has to go on a site plan. The site plan will show us the existing conditions plus what it is you propose to do. And it will show the proposed driveway as well as what's existing on the property today, so that we can properly approve a drawing that can then go to the building department for them to make sure that what you build is what we've approved.
Well, wasn't that approved by the township planner? It's the same as the survey, I understand, with the proposed driveway depicted. And this was approved by the township planner. That's why it went
It
to
was
the
not
board.
approved. Nothing was approved by the township planner. And you're getting a little bit.
I don't exactly know what the site plan is. I don't understand what it is you need from me. We have a survey with a proposed driveway on it, as it would appear.
I understand that you don't understand, and I'm trying to explain it to you. There's a drawing that engineers prepare called a site plan. We have an ordinance. What you're asking for is site plan approval and a variance.
No, I'm asking for approval for the driveway, not for the site. The site's been approved. It's been there. We did not change anything. Like I mentioned, the house was renovated, but we didn't go beyond the footprint of the house. So I don't quite understand what the site plan is.
Ms. Roosevelt, you need to put on your listening ears as we say.
And you need to explain so I understand. So if I don't, you have to try something different. That's not me. That's on you. Look, you try to say I'm stupid. You have to explain to me what you want. I have the survey with a proposed driveway.
Turn your microphone off. Ms. Rosenfeld, I am not saying you are anything other than smart. This is an area that is.
What are you trying to say?
Stop interrupting me. I don't interrupt you. Don't interrupt me. I am trying to help you. What you have submitted to the board is not in proper form for us to approve it. We would like to approve it, but you need to have a document prepared that is in approvable form. You need to consult with an engineer. I'm not telling you to go to an attorney because this is a very basic application, but you do need to have a proper site plan drawing. Your application should be not just for a variance, but for approval of the site plan. And now you're turning your back to me. You can turn on her microphone. Let's hear what she has to say. Megan, turn her microphone back on.
Why is the town planner submitted it to the board if it's not what you need? Why wasn't I told what I need to present before this went in front of you tonight?
I can't answer that question, but I am telling you that.
Well, can you ask why this is? Because I still don't know what it is you need.
Can I try, Phil?
Go ahead, Alice.
Okay, I don't know. You need to call Mrs. Rosenfeld. Hi. Listen, have your daughter, is she there listening? Your daughter with you?
She's here, yeah. She
Okay.
can't understand the
You
time.
need to call an engineer. You can get a list. You can call town hall. They'll give you a list of engineers. You need to get an engineer to draw a site plan. That's all.
We understand respectfully, though, this is the second time we've been here and it's almost 11 p.m. And this is something that should have been brought to our attention by either the town planner or the zoning board official. So we're not understanding why it wasn't brought to our attention that this was needed before we appeared before the board today. That's all. It's clear that we need to, you would
I
like
don't know
us
what
to.
that is. I don't know how site plan
Okay.
will be different from this survey, because the survey is
All right. You're not going to get anywhere by being
I understand.
argumentative.
You know, and we're presenting it, and it's a hand-drawn thing, you know. How is the site
FB, Miss,
different? I don't understand this.
Mrs. Rosenfeld, it
Uh-huh.
cannot, the hand-drawn portion of it is not adequate for what it needs to be. I'll give you an example. How wide is the driveway? Is the driveway 4 feet wide? Of course not. 8 feet wide, 10 feet wide? It does not say on your drawing. There's a lot of information similar to that needs to be on the drawing. It can't be a little hand sketch that says proposed driveway. It can't be a little hand note that says front steps. Front steps. How about a real dimension to show it's not, I see a 6 foot on there, but that is definitely not accurately drawn. It needs to be drawn accurately by somebody who's qualified to do that. So there'll be dimensions and every information on there, and then it should go smoothly for you, but that needs to be done.
So I think what you're concerned about, Diana, when they sent in the application, who told them that it was acceptable the way it was? Do you
Right.
understand?
The planner.
And I want to just.
Wait. Diana gets the application.
Right.
Give her a chance to answer. You sent in your application. Obviously there was some confusion. No one's trying to hurt you. We're trying to help you.
Right.
So let's just take it back a minute. Diana, what do you think happened with the application?
Well, this initial submission to this for this application, that this predates me, the initial submission.
Okay. All right, so that we don't have an answer. You'll have to start over. We apologize. There's been a change in personnel. Just call Diana tomorrow, first thing in the morning. She will tell you how to redo your application. We will try and fit you in. We think it'll work. Just go from there. How's that?
Sure. I just want to point out that we do have those dimensions that I think it's Mr. Ricci was mentioned.
They're all there in the application.
They're just not on this. They're not on the survey because again, we were not told specifically
Right,
that
okay.
it's fabulous, but they're in a separate document that's linked to the application. So
Why don't you get that document to Diana? She's going to take a
No,
look at it.
no, not that document. You need to have a site plan that complies with the ordinance. You didn't read the ordinance. You don't understand what has to go into it. And that's very specific requirements for us to approve a site plan drawing. We want to help you, but you just have to cooperate. We apologize for the delay, and I will do my level best to move you up on the food chain so that you get onto an agenda sooner rather than later. In other words, I won't put you all the way back at the end of the line. However, you do need to cooperate with us by having a properly engineered site plan drawing.
okay, understood. So
Good.
Diana, I guess we'll contact you tomorrow and go from there.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This application is carried to allow the applicant, we don't, Diana, no new filing fees. Let's just get an amended application. Make sure the application calls for both a variance and a site plan approval. Like I said, no new fees are required. Keep the same application number, and we will move them into the agenda as quickly as we can. So this application is carried to a date to be determined. As a matter of fact, I want to save the applicant the cost of notice. So this application is carried to our next meeting, and each meeting I will carry it again without further notice being required so that the applicant doesn't have to send notices to all of the people within 200 feet. This application is carried to May 19th, 2022. Diana listed on the agenda, and if we don't have the site plan in time, then we'll carry it again to June. But as soon as we get the site plan and it's at least 10 days in advance of a meeting, then we can list the application.
Sorry, Mr. Chairperson, you said no new notices are required?
Right, I'm not, because you're not looking for any more relief.
Right, okay, all right.
I consider your notice properly amended to include site plan because it's part of a variance application.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
That concludes this matter for this evening. Members of the board, I know you've all worked extremely hard with respect to our storage unit application. And I thank you all for your cooperation in that regard. That was a tough one, 6 meetings. Not quite as much as Seton Hall, but it certainly was a lengthy one. And I know you all did multiple site inspections and reviews of documents. So I thank you again. Everybody have a good rest of the evening. And I look forward to seeing you on May 19th.
You have to adjourn the meeting.
I will. Meeting adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Oh, God. Good work, Phil.